Hello everybody, it's Warren here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the Pillar of Bone playing as the Skaven against the Dowie, and as you can see, things are about to get very messy very quickly. Now the build I decided to go for here is the old classic Rat Rush, and in many ways it's similar to the build I've been running against the Dowie almost since Mortal Empire's dropped, really. And the whole concept here is using non-AP units to break the dwarves by supporting them with various armor sundering effects. And when it was requested that I run a sort of Rat Rush build, I figured this is sort of the ideal matchup to run it, because there's a lot of units that work here really well here. Now, one unit I decided against, Plague Monk Sensor Bears, not making the cut here because Dwarven magic resist, especially if Rune Lord shows up, is ridiculous. You're going to get nothing out of them. That said, as we can see here, for my Lord rolling with Queek, this strategy, honestly, he works really well because he can snipe enemy lords. He can apply this AoE debuff, the Warp Shard armor. Previously, this was only minus 18 armor. Now it's minus 18 armor and minus 5 melee defense. Makes your Plague Monks as well as Stormvermin that much more effective against enemy troops. He also can knock enemies back with Verminous Valor. He does have stand your ground. Trophy heads, of course, to snipe enemy lords, and Dwarf Gouger for that extra damage output. Alongside him, we do have a Plague Priest because, of course, we need a caster, and the Morse Engine effect can melt Dwarven boxes. Obviously, with the Giselles being introduced, the Dwarven meta has definitely shifted a bit, but you will still occasionally see some nasty boxes, especially with Iron Breakers and units like that, and breaking those with these units here is very difficult. So the Morse Engine, it's much like the Fae against, say, Phoenix Guard Blobs for Bretonnia. Mortis effects will win you that battle. Besides that, we do, of course, have the Bound Pestilent Breath. We do have, of course, Blessed with Filth, providing our troops with poison. Wither, because that's really the key here, is having all these armor debuffs stacking. Vermintide to spawn some rats. Scrying Stone to keep ourselves alive. And, of course, Plague Rash. So when we spam all those spells, our enemy's vigor will be dropping further. And once again, as vigor drops, enemy armor drops too. The front line composed entirely of Plague Monks and Stormvermin, 2 units of Sword and Board Vermin. These guys are very strong here. Dwarves, with their missile play, won't really do too much to Stormvermin. And these guys have good enough stats to where they can outtrade most Dwarven infantry, except really Iron Breakers and Hammers. Though with the armor sundering effects, they might actually even trade well into Hammers. I'm not entirely sure. Besides that, sort of vanguarded in front a little bit, because I wasn't entirely sure how my opponent would deploy. We've actually deployed some Death Runners. I didn't expect them to get quite this far up in my face, but the Death Runners will provide that Weeping Blade effect, which is a further 50% armor removal. So right now, we've got potential minus 30 or minus 60 of overcast armor with the Wither. We've got minus 50% armor with these guys, with Death Runners, and minus 18 armor with Queek. And if that wasn't enough, we do have the Dwarf Thing Menace, the Regiment of Renowned Doomflayers, looking absolutely amazing with their blue sort of tint, the colors decorating the engineers there, the tubes leading to their skulls. It looks absolutely insane. And these guys, I think, are really strong in this matchup. Fear, still very good at helping break cheap Dwarven infantry. And, of course, the Armor Sundering, another minus 30 armor. So, enemy armor is going to be pretty trash. We can even drop Iron Breakers to 0, which is nuts if you think about that. 125 armor being dropped to 0. That's pretty insane. Besides that, simply garnering more width here with Clan Rats as well as Skaven Slaves, and you can see immediately things are kicking off because my opponent did a mass Vanguard build, most likely expecting Giselles. He's got a mix of Rangers as well as Dwarf Miners with Blasting Charges spread out here in the front line. One of these is the Kryn Miners, Regiment of Renown, and these guys, of course, do have more Blasting Charges, which is nasty because they've got a lot of squishy and clumped up troops. Now, besides that, my opponent does have a whole bunch of Miners Blasting Charges Vanguard behind me, as well as more Rangers. If that wasn't enough, there are even more Rangers, the Bugman's Rangers out over here on the flank, and Norgulmi's Iron Breakers, who are going to be a major pain in the rear, and that's why we brought the Plague Furnace to melt those guys. And finally, we do have Grumbrindle, the old crazy uncle, coming in alongside 2 units of Slayers, looking to chop me up, but there's not going to be much for him to attack, to be honest. He is hidden here, most likely, once again, expecting those Giselles, but he's not going to have much to target. He does, however, have Grumbrindle has no fear, making troops unbreakable. Also has Flash Bomb, which is going to be pretty nasty, and Runehelm's Zufbar, so his troops will not be routing quick if he's near them. Slayers, of course, unbreakable, so that's not a worry there, but still, nasty synergy. Now, unfortunately, these Plague Monks are having a horrible time of it, but in comes the Plague Priest, debuffing the Miners, immediately taking a few offline, and the Stormmen piling in behind them are doing some work. Death Runners, in the meantime, do smash into the Rangers, and the Mortis Aura is ticking away, sapping the life of both the Rangers as well as the Miners, who are now down to 2 armor, and this is with just a normal cast of Wither. No Death Runners on these guys. These guys literally down to 0, and that is how quickly everything is buckling. So this pocket here, we played super aggressively. Knocked out my opponent's flank here. And this is kind of similar to the strategy I ran against Norska recently, where we knock out a specific area of my opponent's army and crush them. The nice thing though, dwarves are slow, so we're actually going to be able to exploit this much better and shatter entire units here. These rangers not getting away, they shatter. These rangers over here also buckling and falling apart. Over here, these miners do actually hold up a bit better despite being surrounded by Plague Monks and Stormmen. Most likely my Wither should have gone down on these guys, but that was simply a misplay, is what it is. Norgumling's Ironbreakers and miners over here waste most of their blasting charges on my Skaven slaves, which is a big win, preventing those explosives from going in on much more valuable targets like the Plague Monks, Death Runners, or Stormmen. In the meantime, the Dwarfling Menace is running amok here, just going ham after the enemy. And seeing my opponent closing the gap here, we actually are going to try to bail out. Unfortunately, a little too slow, and the Stormmen and Plague Monks take a nasty volley there from the Ironbreakers. But, you know, we did what we could. We are going to be able to start regrouping here. Big misplay, though, on my part is using the Plague Priest as a line breaker. And now, I didn't want to take the blasting charges to the face, so I wanted to try to disrupt them as much as possible. But because of that, the Plague Priest is taking an absolute beating here, and it's really, really painful. In the meantime, though, we are going to get some summons in. These Clan Rats are going to start swooping in on those Rangers. The Dwarfling Menace charging in on the Rangers and running them over. Not getting too many kills immediately, but doing a lot of damage. Dropping their armor to 10 and massacring these. Look at that. 8 models gone almost immediately. These guys just look insane in the fight here. And just spinning around, having the time of their lives, sending that Ranger flying over there. And so definitely living up to their name. Unfortunately, though, the Plague Priest is almost annihilated now, and he's suffering. Queek is in there too, helping him out, but there's a lot of HP gone. And fortunately, though, Bugman's Rangers being distracted a little bit by the Skaven slaves who are recovering and pouring back in. That said, this Plague Furnace is very low. We are trying to use it to break these troops, and fortunately are able to overrun these miners. So the horde of Skaven trash is coming in. Now, unfortunately, a bit of a misplay on my part was not chasing these guys off. I had multiple Skaven slaves, could have easily gotten rid of these guys, and did not. So that's going to definitely come back to bite me in the rear, I think, because now these guys still have blasting charges. They still have 29 models. It's still damage that can be done to these tightly packed Skaven formations. The only thing that's really worse for this army build is gyrocopters with steam guns, which fortunately are less of a risk nowadays because of Chazales. Now that said, the Dwarfling Menace here running down the Rangers. Slayers trying to come in, but you know, they're Slayers, they're slow, they're not getting very far. Meantime, we do crush these miners, shattering units, and the Stormmen now committing here against the Slayers, as well as Norgumling's Ironbreakers in this bit of a pocket, and it's really not a good fight for them. It's really not where we want to be in life. Blessed with Filth does go down, buffing up their damage output, or buffing up their survivability, I guess, by debuffing the enemy. Unfortunately, we are going to sort of get stuck in here against Norgumling's Ironbreakers and Miners, and this is going to be a bit of a protracted engagement. Certainly, Queek is providing support, which is nifty, but and Queek can also pressure Grimbrindle, which is nice. I do believe Queek outfights like every Footlord in the game. He's actually pretty insane, and you can see him disrupting everything there, sending the dwarf formation flying. Queek definitely a pretty badass character when it comes to fighting dwarves, but still, it's a bit of a struggle. Norgumling's Ironbreakers have insane stats, 80-1, even with Queek's effect, so honestly, we're doing nothing to him. And in the meantime, things definitely not looking peachy keen. Balance of power is actually about dead center, despite my pretty resounding success at crushing multiple units. And part of that just comes down to how much damage my opponent has actually managed to do. These Plague Monks basically gone. They rout. My Plague Furnace is barely alive, clinging to life on only 790 HP. Now, he's got the leadership to stick around. He does have that Mortis effect, which is going to be great, but a few volleys is going to be enough. 90 armor, not the greatest amount. He's a pretty easy target when he's not sort of jerking around and with his attack animations. And Bugman's Rangers, they've got 4 AP. That's not terrible. If we look here, is it 4 AP or is it even 5? It's 4. So yeah, they'll destroy him pretty quick, especially if this Vigor's dropping to very tired, so that armor's worth even less. Now, fortunately, one of the nice things, as long as I'm casting, I will be debuffing my opponent's armor values, and that is definitely going to be a bit nifty. In the meantime, you can see the drain effect going down on these Norgumling's Ironbreakers. And unfortunately, I guess the damage is magic, so you actually only get 10 damage a tick. Still, it's a decent amount. It is some damage. But unfortunately, the Bugman's Rangers here just having a field day wrecking this guy, and I have nothing to shut them down with. Perhaps should have dropped the Rat Summon right about now. I still had Winds of Magic. I just didn't think about it properly, and yeah, we're screwed. We're getting wrecked. Elsewhere, though, over here, these Slayers getting run down by Plague Monks, taking heavy casualties. They've only got 40 speed to the 42 of the Plague Monks, so they're not able to escape here, and that's definitely nifty. Elsewhere in the meantime, this horde of Plague Monks as well as Death Runners is overrunning these Bugman's Rangers, trying to get in on them. Grimbrindle has no fear, has gone down, so my opponent's troops are not routing. It's definitely a little frustrating. The Dwarfling Menace here just running amok, trying to escape these very angry Slayers. Doing a good job here, running into the Bugmans. Now, Bugmans do have charge defense, but they were not braced. And the Dwarf Thing Menace will do good number on them. It might not be the optimal situation, but they will definitely hurt them. Meantime, Skaven Slaves pouring in, and this is really where our width is coming into play. These Slayers bogged down by Plague Monks now. Plague Monks will probably lose this because they're so beat up. But it's going to be a very bloody affair for the Slayers, and that'll hopefully free us up to win in the long term. Now, the Bugman's Rangers here do get caught, and Bugman's Rangers, very solid melee combatants, have insane melee stats. Against, for example, Skaven Slaves, they'd probably win with basically no casualties. But against Death Runners, who have some very solid melee stats, against the Plague Monks with their bonus versus infantry of, I believe, 8 or maybe even 9. Bonus for infantry. Oh, actually, it's only 7, huh? I thought it was 8, but like War Dancers. But either way, we're in there. We're wrecking these Bugman's Rangers. They're not going to last too much longer. Now, certainly these Rangers over here are rallying in the distance, and they're going to apply some pressure, but fortunately, Death Runners do have respectable leadership by Skaven standards, and with that Weeping Blade effect, they are helping these Plague Monks munch through these guys quickly, and when my opponent tries to run here, we've actually hit our charge animation, and we're able to keep up with them, and these guys look just so awesome. They're shanking these dwarves. They got their knives out. They're going to town, and it's quite the brutal sight. These Bugman's Rangers are not going to be coming back to their holds. They're dying here, out in the fields and on the surface, and the Pillars of Bone are going to have more victims. Either way, over here the Bugman's Rangers are getting overrun. Certainly, they've at this point used up most of their ammo, so it's a little too late. But still, the Death Runner's getting in there, the Plague Monks in there. They are going to mulch through these Rangers very quickly. Once the Rangers are gone, Bugmans are next on the menu. Here in the pits, Queek is leading his Stormman in the fight, standard ground being popped. Now, Norcoming's Ironbreaker with 135 kills, but do keep in mind a lot of that has been against cheap trash, like Skaven Slaves early on. So it's not the biggest win, it's not as impressive as it might seem. That said, we are struggling. We did lose our Plague Furnace, and it's over here in the rubble, and so we don't have anything to drain these guys with, which is kind of brutal. That said, you know, the Stormmen holding out okay. Their stats are not terrible. And they are going to be able to chop down these Slayers. They've got Skaven Slaves coming in, Clan Rats coming in. These guys will easily manhandle the Slayers and the Miners. It's going to be a big win. And Queek is providing his support. Queek is pretty beastly against infantry. He's got 420 weapon strength, 35 bonus for his infantry. So that attack is up in the 90s. It's almost got 100 melee attack. That's enough to crack Norcoming's Ironbreakers, even though they are crushing my poor Stormmen. In comes the Dwarf Thing Menace, having recently chased off the enemy shooting, and it goes right in to the Ironbreakers, trying to shut them down. Balance power is swinging in my favor now. These guys down to 77 armor now, so pretty solid win. Unfortunately, we don't have Death Runners in here. The Death Runners are busy chasing off my opponent's rear guard, the Bugman's Rangers, as well as the Miners and units like that, and kind of ignoring their middle here. Finally, we are getting these Death Runners to start swinging back in, though at this point, the battle's almost won against the Norcoming's Ironbreakers. Still, you know, we are trying. Dwarf Thing Menace is in there, though I should probably cycle charge them better. So we are going to pull them out into the Miners here. They run them over, bowling them like pins, and sweeping around for a rear charge into the Norcoming's Ironbreakers. And that's going to be pretty brutal. These guys are now exhausted, so keep in mind that armor on paper is actually going to be even lower in practice. And we are going to get in there. Norcoming's Ironbreakers are immune to psychology, so the fear doesn't count for much, but still, you know, rear charge does something. They are down to 20 models, and they actually break, so, you know, we got them off the field. That's nice. That's 20 models we don't have to kill. Over here, Bugman's Rangers getting overrun, but being Bugman's Rangers, they don't actually break. This is kind of ridiculous. Look at this. So many rats. They're all in there. The Death Runners are in there. The Plague Monks are in there. They're beating the snot out of these guys. There's none of them left. And do they rout? No, they don't. Literally down to 15 models. There's still 39 Death Runners, 56 Plague Monks, and these guys don't break. They stick around. They are definitely doing their country proud. Definitely getting crushed pretty hard, but yeah, doing their country proud. Unfortunately, their region is disabled because their leadership is wavering, but still, like, this is insane. 10 models left, and they are still fighting. Fighting to the very bitter end for their Dowie people. Now, elsewhere, these Slayers over here kind of getting cleaned up. The Stormmen will do this job very admirably. This is one place where Stormmen will shine a huge amount. And my opponent's army at this point is going to shatter, leaving only these Slayers to be cleaned up by the rat hordes, and that is going to be GG for the Skaven. So the Rat Rush definitely shining. Now I do want to mention one thing here then I think is worth talking about, and that's the fact that if my opponent brought gyrocopters, this build is in deep trouble. And in my opinion, you always want to bring some anti-air to be really competitive. Gisele's obviously a great choice. Rattling guns can also work, especially the Regiment of Round. Like, you bring one Regiment of Round Rattling gun, like ditch a Plague Monk, ditch a Clan Rat, and that's a decent choice as well as a support tool, just because you got those smoke bombs. But you always want something against air, in my opinion. That said, the build works pretty nicely. You got all those armor sundering effects from Queek, from the Plague Priest, from the Death Runners, from the Dwarfing Menace, and these are very potent units in their own right. And you stack that on top of how much they benefit your Stormmen and your Plague Monks, and it's awesome because this way you don't have to pay for super expensive sensor bearers. You don't have to pay for super expensive frontline infantry, and you get that AP performance. You can bring Stormmen, who are a much safer pick against enemy missile play, and that's really awesome. And this build definitely can shine against Dawi for sure. Now for my opponent's build here, definitely bit of a, not a gimmicky build, but obviously a Vanguard build, so it had its own issues. Now I actually do like his spread. For if he'd been fighting me and I was a more campy Skaven player, like a lot of newer day Skaven builds are, this would probably be a pretty potent strat. Against this Rat Rush though, it definitely kind of flopped, and I think if some of my micro had been a little better, it could have been even worse for him. Because I could have easily not lost this Plague Priest, and that would have made that end fight with the Norgrim's Ironbreakers much easier. That said, definitely some good value out of some of the blasting charges, crushing the poor Skaven slaves. Boogman's Rangers getting massive value, gunning down a lot of my troops. Definitely some rough stuff there. But still, we did manage to overrun it. I think if I was going to recommend some changes, I'd probably honestly drop Grumbrindle and replace him with a Rune Lord. Having the runes with the flexible casting is definitely useful. Like being able to snare an opponent that's far away is nice. Because oftentimes you'll be engaging in with these wide builds, you'll often be engaging in one spot and not be able to support another. Second of all, Gyrocopters, while obviously susceptible to Giselles, are in my opinion a nice pick. You can bring one or two with steam guns, for example, and they will do a decent job. Or brimstone guns, and they'll do a decent job at shutting down enemy lords. But that's just my 2 cents there. Regardless, well played to Gothmog. I do hope you guys enjoyed. A little announcement for next week. I do have some pre-recorded games that will be going up, but I will be on vacation for the duration of the week, and might be getting back on next weekend, but I'm not sure how that'll work out, and I can't really guarantee videos there. So there are a few pre-recorded videos. Some of these will be tourney play, so for those of you guys who have been asking about that, you will be getting something. Hopefully you guys enjoy. I do hope you guys have a wonderful week, and just wanted to let everybody know I would not be making, or there wouldn't be as many videos next week. So hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you all around. Bye for now.